It's great to be here. I do a lot of sort of on-the-ground program implementation, so it's really nice to sort of get out of the weeds or the attic, so to speak, and talk about all these big policy issues. And today, what I wanted to talk about is sort of the role of local government, different strategies that we can use. I focused most of my presentation on RECO, our Residential Energy Conservation Ordinance, but given the discussion, I want to talk a little bit about our rebate program too that we did with federal stimulus money. Our overall strategy for energy efficiency in the built environment in Berkeley is to set minimum mandatory standards. So that would be through our RECO, or Residential Energy Conservation Ordinance, that is triggered at time of sale and substantial remodel. And then other programs that encourage innovation. And as the innovation rises, then we raise those minimum standards. So it's a constant ratcheting up. So we're in the process now of updating our Residential Energy Conservation Ordinance, and what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about are some of the policy options we're thinking about and some of the difficulties in taking one road versus another. But we've had the good fortune of having this federal stimulus money that's allowed us as a local government to take an active role in energy efficiency programs. And I think one of the really interesting things we found in working with the utility is we have such different perspectives on information. Any information that we glean is actually all public records. And any information the utility has is completely private. So it makes it really difficult to collaborate on programs. But basically we've got 4 separate program areas. For the single family market, we have a kind of rebate market rate program more to the higher income categories. We also have a moderate income program that we've put together with Rising Sun Energy's Green Energy Training Services program. So they take trainees from Richmond Build and go out and do retrofits on buildings, whereas the rebate program uses service providers, home performance contractors to go and retrofit buildings. People pay for that and then they get rebates later. We also have a multifamily grants program and a non-residential grant program. And I think the big lesson for us in that program, especially in the multifamily market, we've got some buildings that are owned by individuals and others that are owned by nonprofits. And the individually owned units are not required to comply with prevailing wage rates. Now, I come from a labor background. I worked for HERE for years. And I find myself in this weird world of saying, oh, darn, this program's subject to prevailing wage. And the reason for that is the prevailing wage for a lot of this work is about $52 an hour for insulation installation, which is crazy considering a non-prevailing wage project can basically, I work with contractors all the time and they're great contractors, but often they do subcontract out the insulation installation, and those laborers out in the field, they tend to be unprotected, undocumented, untrained. That's kind of one of the lowest of the low in the residential market. And those are the people that are actually, what they do is going to make that project effective or not. So every time they've done a labor study looking at the Energy Upgrade California, they talk to contractors, but they're not talking to the laborers and they're not setting up standards for the laborers. So I just don't want to forget about that invisible workforce. So on to our program. Our program is guided by our climate action plan, where our goals are 35% reduction by 2020, 80 by 2050. And in designing our programs, especially in the residential market, we need to see where are the greenhouse gases coming from. And I think somebody mentioned how a lot of the programs in California haven't looked at building envelope before. And you can see why it's important, especially in a coastal climate where we don't have a lot of electric loads from cooling. Most of our loads are space heating and water heating. So 75% is from natural gas. So we could put up all the solar in this area and still have 75% of our emissions from natural gas. And the only way to get at those emissions is solar thermal for hot water and building envelope improvements. And the good news is we have incredibly drafty houses. So there's lots and lots of work that we can do, but we need to make sure that our programs are designed to to look at how a building uses energy. And just one thing I'll add, the interesting thing is natural gas use is more related to the building, whereas electricity use is more related to the behavior. So as we develop our programs, that's kind of the way we need to target them. So in terms of how we're doing meeting our climate action goals, we're about halfway to our 2020 goal. We're down about 12%. I mean, a third of the way. Sorry, wishful thinking. We're down about 12%, and we've got quite a ways to go. So our rebate program has been, is one way we see of being able to get there. If we had more ability to get homes to do deep retrofits. So what we've learned from the rebate program, we've had about 12 homes go through that program. To get a 30% energy improvement to the home, that doesn't mean a 30% energy improvement in their energy bills, because we don't know what that is yet, but a 30% improvement to their home has cost about $10,000. For that, we've given about a $3,000 rebate, and PG&E is giving a $3,000 rebate. So that's a $6,000 incentive, pretty hefty incentive, but people are putting up $4,000, and some are putting up more for the homes that are in the higher level. So it's not for the weak. Getting your home retrofit is a huge commitment. It's very expensive. So when looking at our strategies, that's why we really want to look at market transformation. How can we make these programs sustainable in the long run? And we really want them to be based on building science. Our current RICO program requires attic insulation, which can get you up to 10% energy improvement in your home. But if you do the attic insulation and you don't air seal, you're losing another 10-15% of improvement. That air sealing of the building envelope, where the homes lose 30-40% of the hot air through the ceiling, that's what needs to be done prior to the insulation. So we want to make sure we have a program where we're not having people do things that's going to lose them opportunities for deeper retrofits later. So the goal of our program is to really have a mandatory program that has an on-ramp to the incentive program. So as we're revising RICO, we need it to align with what the utility incentive programs are. And I'll just quickly go through. So the kind of requirements policy requirements you can think of for RICO really include some sort of energy assessment at time of sale or remodel, and then some kind of energy improvement. That's basically all there is. Everything falls into one of those categories. Focus groups done for the DOE have seen that people are willing to spend about $200 to $400 for an assessment on their homes. And the people who've participated in our program have found those assessments to be very, very useful to find out what is going on in their specific home and what are the recommendations for improvement. So that's something we're looking at. Now, problems with energy upgrades to a home is they don't translate into value to the home. There needs to be some way to create transparency that one home is more energy efficient than the other. And that's what an asset rating can do. And that's what they use in Europe. They have, it's like a miles per gallon sticker for your home. Their energy performance score in Washington and Oregon. California has tried to do HERS too, but it's rife with problems, and it also takes an incredible amount of time. We're using the HERS 2 modeling software, and it takes about 10 hours to do the assessment and generate the report, and that's just not going to fit in the marketplace. So the other thing, an operational analysis is helpful for people who are living in the home to find out how they're using their energy, especially for their electricity. And then you can generate a report, either a simple home energy report or an actionable scope of work. And there's a lot of nuance between those two, but one of the things that's important to realize, the amount of time spent on a simple home energy report, and I was one to say we don't want a simple energy report. We want a deep, actionable scope of work. We want to do all the diagnostics on the house when we get there. But the problem is the person who's doing the work needs to do that actionable scope of work, so that becomes their contract. Whereas a simple home energy report, you don't actually want to spend that much time because it's got to be redone by the contractor who's going to be doing that work. So really you want somebody to come in and do that initial report, get an asset rating, and then lead that as a marketing tool to get to an actionable scope of work. And these are just an example of some different asset ratings. There's the home energy score, which is being developed by LBNL and piloted around the country. There's the European energy certificate. And then for improvements, there's the choice between a performance improvement, which says, I'm going to take that asset rating and either make you improve it by a percentage or set a minimum asset rating. In Scotland right now, they're looking at, the European system is G through A. So Scotland's looking at saying any home that's G and F has to go up. So it's sort of starting at the bottom and then ratcheting up that way. It's the rating, G and F, G is the worst, A is the best. So they're saying, you know, let's rate all the homes and then require the worst ones to get better. What our current RICO is a list of prescription measures. And as I said, the issue there is that it creates lost opportunities. So what we're recommending, what we're looking to do is to have some kind of affordable asset rating with verification that some prescriptive measures are done, especially things that don't create lost opportunities. So they have to be very limited measures like weather stripping, fireplace sealing, things like that. With, in the future, creating some kind of minimum performance target once people get used to seeing the asset rating and they see value in it. And then what we also need is a more regional or statewide approach to RICO, to the energy conservation requirements, so that when somebody's buying a home, they can look across the region and compare homes and not just have that information in Berkeley. And also there's the administrative cost of each individual city having to develop their own system. So we're working now with the Alameda County trying to get, there's some other cities, there are RICOs in everybody's climate action plan. So we're saying, okay, rather than each of us doing something on our own, let's get together and do it together. So thank you so much for your time.